appreciate you all joining us for Breakfast with FCP. I hope you have something good, coffee, I don't know, cinnamon bun, something to get your morning off to a great start. But really appreciate um, you being with us. I know sometimes strategic planning may not whet the appetite this early in the morning for those who engage in this practice reluctantly or maybe periodically. But we had an opportunity to meet Adam some time ago, and I also had a conversation with his business partner, Sophia, before this. And we're really excited that they have the opportunity to share their platform with all of us, PlanPerfect, because it's a little bit different than the traditional consultant route that a lot of our nonprofits tend to take. So they're going to be going through their presentation and give you a little bit more information about what the platform can do for organizations that they've been working with, and this may be an opportunity as well for you to think about doing so as well. So at Foundations Community Partnership, for those who don't know us so well, we are a private foundation right here in Doylestown, supporting behavioral health and human service needs of children, young adults, and families right here in Bucks County. We do quite frequently get requests from organizations for strategic planning, so this is not a subject foreign to us, hence the opportunity today to engage a little bit with Adam and Sophia. Also want to thank our board member Walt for being here. Really appreciate you always supporting these efforts for nonprofits, and I won't even embarrass you naming all the wonderful organizations that you're involved in. I don't know how you find the time, but we appreciate volunteers like yourself being engaged. Before we get started, I also want to kick it over to our newest addition to FCP, our new Director of Grants and Program, Morgan Clark, to introduce herself and also tell you quickly about our nonprofit growth grant. So Morgan, off to you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. As Toby mentioned, my name is Morgan Clark. I serve as the Director of Grants and Programs at FCP. Was recently trained up by Caroline, who many of you are used to seeing, and she's fantastic. So some big shoes to fill over here. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our nonprofit growth grants. So one of the ways FCP supports our grantees is through the nonprofit growth grant cycle. These grants are offered on a rolling basis year-round and are really focused on the how behind your work. So helping organizations strengthen their leadership, planning systems, so you're set up for long-term success. And that can look like support for things such as strategic or succession planning, financial planning, board development, executive or custom coaching, or professional development opportunities for nonprofit leaders and staff, including leadership programs, workshops, and conferences. So the big picture goal is really just to make sure that our nonprofits have the tools, skills, and structure they need to operate effectively as you adapt and grow. So that's why today's webinar is such a good fit. Tools like PlanPerfect, as you'll hear from our guests, Adam and Sophia, really help organizations think more intentionally about planning, your alignment, your decision making, and they're very much within the scope of our nonprofit growth grants. So if you walk away today thinking this could really strengthen our organization, it's absolutely something we'd encourage you to reach out to us about and explore through the grant opportunity, the nonprofit growth grants. So I will drop a link into the chat for all of you so you can read more about the nonprofit growth grants if this is something you'd like to explore. But of course, you can always visit us online, fcpartnership.org, to explore all of our different grant cycles. And with that, Toby, I guess I'm going to turn it over to Adam and Sophia to talk us through the platform.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for the tee up, Morgan. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that everybody can see both our brief presentation and, more importantly, our demo. Can everybody see? Thumbs up. We're good. All right. Awesome. Well, like Morgan and Toby mentioned, this is really an introduction to our system. Before we dive into anything, I just wanted to give a thank you to our hosts, FCP, for being gracious with exposing us to their community and partnering with us and thinking about how this work can apply to their growth grant opportunities. So just a deep thanks to Toby, Morgan, and the whole team. And then I just wanted to quickly introduce ourselves. We're Sophia and Adam. My background, I come to this space building technology and working as a management consultant. Sophia and I were fortunate enough to meet at when I was a student at business school. She was a professor of the Board Fellows program after a 30 plus year career in the nonprofit sector, most notably as the CEO of Chicago Botanic Garden. I sort of stole her introduction, but both of us are the co-founders at PlanPerfect, which is why you're all here today. Sophia, I'll pass it over to you to just give a little bit more information, and then we can dive into the agenda.
That sounds great, Adam. Thank you. And thank you all for being here and for your support of bringing our platform to all of you and also your grantees. I love your website. It's wonderful. And I've seen a lot in my, I love when Adam says 30 plus career, and yours is really terrific. So thank you for all the hard work you do. It's really so very important. So the next slide shows what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about why strategic plans matter. We're also going to, at some point, talk a little bit about risk management plans as Adam gets into the demo of our system. We'll talk about the 6 phases of strategic planning, and we'll do some demos. And hopefully you'll feel at the end a little bit more confident in strategic planning, understanding where we can work with you, partner with you or organizations that you know, and also where we fit into a consultant ecosystem as well, because we love consultants. We're not intending to take consultants out of any of this process. We really see consultants as integral to the health and welfare of nonprofits, but feel that having a platform working with them is a more successful tool for everybody.
Yeah,
So why?
we're a small enough group that if you have any questions, I'll
Please,
watch
yes.
the chat while Sophia talks, and you can feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, just talk, right?
Yeah, I was accused of speaking very quickly in our pre-demo session, so I'm going to try to slow it down. But if anybody needs anything, just feel free to jump in.
We're a conversational size, that's for sure. So next, why strategic plans matter. And we don't probably need to tell all of the people in this group this, but just planning matters. We were with a client yesterday, a really brilliant CEO doing important work actually in your space. And she was just really struggling with figuring out what to do next. I mean, really frozen. And so we walked her through that. So strategic planning is, one way of calling it, or just simply planning, breaking big ideas down into smaller pieces allows us in any part of our life to have clearer direction and focus. We also all need to raise money to be able to do the important work that we do. So allows us to have better fundraising. So for the fundraising consultant on the line, if an organization doesn't have a strategic plan, as you know well, it's really hard to raise money with and for them. It makes decision making faster, more enjoyable, and people understand how they have succeeded. So more accountability and measurement gives not only success to the organization, but also self-satisfaction and ways to reward employees who are doing a good job. Makes us more efficient and more adaptable and resilient to change, as we're seeing change happening very quickly. So, and to the end point, the strategic plan, however, is only valuable if it actually is used. And as we've all seen, many people make strategic plans and then don't use them. So we're going to show you next an example of a strategic plan that we've been working with a client on that has really led to action. So Dare to Try is a wonderful nonprofit in the Chicago area. I've been volunteering with them for many years. They work with adaptive athletes in adaptive sports, so swimming, biking, running. And they are already one of the best in class in the country. But what they really had a vision of is reaching more people, so expanding, but they didn't know how to do that. So using our system and conversations with us, they were able to create a strategic plan. It's called Dare to Expand. And now they've launched a capital campaign, which is allowing them to have greater success. And they're also expanding their camps, so clinics around the country. And in fact, Adam and I are both volunteering at one in Tampa this weekend, working with many of these wonderful athletes, swimming, biking, and running. So having a plan is allowing them to actually have much more success in meeting the needs of the people they serve. And we all know we could probably sit here on this call for all morning with our cinnamon buns. I wish I had a cinnamon bun, Toby, and talk about the problems with strategic planning. Here are really some of them that, first of all, as we alluded to earlier, like sometimes they don't really feel very much fun to make. And so you sort of keep pushing it off to the last thing on your list of things to do after, like doing the laundry and going grocery shopping. But actually, they can be fun to make, and they can, when done right, combat some of these things that are the problem. So having no clear ownership and no alignments, a static format. So just we call it the binder on the shelf, a plan in the cloud. And if they're alive, it's just much more interesting and fun to work on. Too many priorities, ending at board approval, disconnected from daily work. You can see this. And it really helps, especially with succession planning and leadership turnover, to have a plan in place, not only a strategic plan, but enterprise risk management plan, as well as a succession plan, that are all in one spot that everybody can find, and it allows people to have a lot more continuity. So essentially, what we're trying to do with PlanPerfect and where we see hopefully the industry going is moving from a document to a living system, or think about it differently, from a roadmap to a compass or a GPS system. So the document is sort of giving you a static moment in time, like the paper map that some of us on the call remember. And then a compass allows you to move and shape and go with the direction you're moving in, more like the GPS of today. So that's the analogy that we use. And we really see that PlanPerfect that we have built now, have almost 80 clients around the country, including, amazingly, 30 public TV and radio stations just came on in a cohort in the last couple of weeks. So funded by a foundation, and now in 22 states. So we're gonna move on to the next one. So, and is this Adam? This one's yours? Nope, still mine.
Yeah. Oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Yeah. No worries.
To get into execution, like what we were saying before, is that without, you can have a strategy, but if it's not used, then that's not useful. So what we really see in creating the tool that you're about to see is that we assign ownership at every level of the plan. So it's a combination of a planning tool and a implementation tool, and with alerts and warnings when things go off track, and you really understand what the risk is if you don't achieve the signposts or the guideposts along the way. So risk is often missing from strategic planning, and we are now really combining risk management and strategic planning in one, because strategy defines where you're going, but risk defines what could prevent you from getting there. So I kind of think about it as risk management planning is when you wake up and you figure like, I can't do everything. I'm worried about all these things. I'm worried about the world. I'm worried about my family, all these things, writing them all down and making really clearly labeling what exactly it is that could happen, what the circumstances are that could bring that into play, and then what are the mitigations that are going to be put in place to be able to prevent those risks from happening. And if they do, knowing you have a game plan to get out of the door and fix them. So combining them together in the same conversation is really a healthy way to move forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Sophia. I will now take over, and this is where we get into more of the demo part of the conversation. So we're going to ground all of this by talking about really the what we see as the 6 phases of strategic planning and how the system assists in each of those different buckets. But this will help contextualize for you all kind of how we think about it. So the first one is really think what we call planning to plan. So this aligns everybody on purpose, scope, and the timeline before you even dive into your strategic planning cycle. Anyone who's sat on a board knows that this can sometimes look like weeks of back and forth on email or over board meetings and conversations. The way we really think about it now is leveraging the system to help draft agendas that help you kick off this conversation, plan your 6 phases across the life cycle of your strategic plan, and then ultimately prepare you for the conversation that needs to happen. So now I will dive into the system here, and hopefully I set this up right so you can see the system. But what you're looking at on your screen here is really our organize functionality. So this is what we use to support phase 1 of the strategic plan. This makes sure that nobody's just staring at our system with no idea where to start. We see it as 6 phases that I will cover in this conversation. And below each of these is essentially everything plus the kitchen sink of what you could possibly do in the phase to support your strategic plan. This is accompanied by a video series as well that Sophia recorded that includes handouts, etc. This is really all about charting your journey through the system. And like we mentioned, once you start to set due dates and start to complete these things, you'll get reminders to keep moving you along. And then the last thing is anywhere in the system we support the phase, you'll see one of these buttons. As you might imagine, there's a lot of these buttons because we support the whole process. So this is really ends up being kind of the command center until the plan is built and you're tracking it, and really make sure that no executive director, CEO, or board member who's leading this process is just handed the system with no idea how to navigate the overall process. I'll now jump back into the presentation to really think about the next phase, which is all about listening or hearing your community. So the goal here is to gather context and voices that really help ground the plan in real world needs. All of us have been part of these processes where it looks like a board sitting in a room, putting sticky notes on a piece of paper that helps to define the future of the organization with no voices of the beneficiaries who support it, relevant, government or media people involved, donors having a seat at the table, right? This process really allows you to hear all of the voices that could support your strategic plan. So the traditional way is, doing a ton of interviews or doing a survey. An AI-enabled way or how our system supports is it really thinks about launching surveys from a centralized system as well as all of the data that could possibly support your plan, and then leveraging the tool to help you summarize that information as it's relevant to your strategic plan. You've seen the word AI on here. I should pause and just explain that what lives below or behind our whole system is a custom model that we built specific to the nonprofit sector, again, trained on Sophia's brain and all the data that she has from her lengthy career. And it's specific to strategic planning and now enterprise risk management. So the number of times it touches in the system, the goal of that language model, what we call our small language model, is really to help inform the strategic plan. Just an example of how this came to life with a real client. The Golisano Children's Museum of Naples leveraged this for their discovery process. So they got over 300 responses to their surveys across donors, members, parents of children who had attended the museum. And they were able to do the analytics in minutes versus hours. John, the executive director, also did the manual workaround, which is the reason we know how long it took. And he was actually, like you can see in the second one, thought it did a better job than he did, only because it reduces biases. As we're all looking at planning or survey data, we bring our own bias to the table. So the system really allows you to remove that. And then last but not least, the final one is probably the most important part. You can see here he mentions, you can be the richest family in town or the poorest, but as soon as you come into the building, you're all the same. But everybody has different perspectives. So he was able to understand not only how to serve these two communities, but his community more broadly using the functionality in the system. So now that we're squarely talking about discovery, I'll dive back into the system and just show you some of the functionality here. So like I mentioned, the system supports kind of 2 ways of getting data into your process. The first is an upload. So you'll see imported notes and transcripts. This is where you can put any information about your organization that will help provide context for your strategic plan. This could be interview notes or recording or a transcript from an interview. It can be previous strategic plans. It can be information about your market, et cetera. The goal here is really to get all of the data that you think might be relevant into the system. We just onboarded a smaller client that uploaded somewhere around 40 documents. So there's really no limit. It's just really getting all the data in one place. And then the other way we support discovery is through our survey tool. This allows you to create a survey. You can select a stakeholder type. And from there, we really work alongside our customers to help them launch these surveys. So in the Create tab, you're able to see a list of recommended questions that would support a conversation with that stakeholder group. You can distribute this via email or a web link. And then really where we add our PlanPerfect magic is during both the survey completion as well as the insights that you gain from the survey. So the first thing I mentioned, essentially once the user goes through and fills out their survey, we save all of that data and then we immediately enter them into a chat experience. So the survey or the bot in this scenario is taking a look at all of the survey data and asking follow-up questions to enrich the survey data. This is great for smaller organizations who don't have the bandwidth to afford going out and interviewing or doing focus groups where you might get some of this nuanced context. It's really a way to get more of that context as part of the survey process. And then the other area we support is really in the insights. So all of that data is then ported into our AI insights tool. And this is broken down similarly throughout the system. At the very top, it's kind of the key themes about the insights of the organization. It talks about notable insights or information that's relevant to you. Next is the recommendations. So really thinking about what are the key recommendations from this survey for your strategic plan. And then last but certainly not least, my favorite part is areas for further investigation. As everyone on the call knows, you've heard a lot of news around hallucinating bots or making up data or just trying to please the user. This is really our way of making sure that our system is not doing that. It's our model's way of saying, hey, I heard something about some of this, but I don't have enough data to make a conclusion. So it's on you as the leader to either go back and do more research, to continue the conversation internally or at least acknowledge it. And again, this allows you to do it survey by survey. So you can take a look at kind of what your donors are thinking about. And then you also can do this across all the data in the system. So this is a nice way to zoom out and see what everyone is thinking and then kind of get into specific stakeholder groups as well. And then last but not least, you can also do the same with the SWOT analysis. So this generates a SWOT analysis in real time, and it allows you to oscillate between different stakeholder groups within your organization, just to get an understanding of how everyone is thinking about, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within your organization and areas for additional growth. And again, you're able to download this and share it at a board meeting or discuss it more broadly. It's really meant to be flexible with both the person experience as well as the experience within the system. I will quickly pause because this is a pretty dense data part of the system. Any specific questions on the line so far? Happy to keep moving. Oh, Liz, I love it. I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Sorry, I had just popped a question in the chat anyway. So if you have a client who has their own survey database, like a membership organization, like a library, can you talk through what uploading that data would look like? Do you need raw data? Can you just take the finalized results? If you could just talk through that a little bit more, that would be great. And then I have another question.
Yeah, of course. It's a great question. So we can import the raw data in the backend. It would appear as a survey. You obviously don't get all the chat experience because the survey's done, but that's one way. The other way that's a little easier, and typically what our clients do is just import the summary. So what was the findings from those surveys? And again, you can do that here. This is just a simple data sort of document repository. So we do support that in sort of those two fashions today.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then you had another one?
I do.
Yeah.
So you mentioned it puts it into kind of a SWOT analysis. Some of our clients don't use SWOT per se. They might use SOAR or another type of acronym. Are we able to kind of modify that, or does it automatically dump it as a SWOT?
Yeah, right now this button specifically automatically dumps it as a SWOT, but we
Okay.
do have a tool which I was planning to cover at the end, but since you asked and it's my favorite part of the system, I'll do it now. This is our PlanPerfect advisor. You can think about this as a like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever your favorite model is. But again, it's our specific model, but you can come in here and ask it for those custom sort of reports. So we have some folks that do the pestle analysis. I've heard SOAR, et cetera. So it's just coming in, and obviously, just like any other AI model, the more context you give it, so describing what SOAR means in this case, the more that it gives output. So this is just a couple examples of how this is used, but this is really our backstop way of doing that. The reason was we heard so many people starting to come up with new acronyms. There was SOAR. I heard a couple other ones. So we were like, it's better to let people sort of explore on their own versus trying to add 10 buttons to the top here. Thanks, Liz. It's a great question. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So we use PlanPerfect as a kind of a CRM tool.
Great.
So in order to do the surveys through your system, I assume there's an automated way to upload.
Yeah, there is. So you can basically, when you launch the survey here and distribute it, you can upload a list of stakeholders. All you need is their name and their email. You actually don't even need their name. You just need their email, but the name makes it a better experience. And then you can send it out from here. So you can email from the system, or you can, if you're sending out like a newsletter to your donors and you want to just include this, like, hey, let your voice be heard, you can also share it as a link, and you can accept anonymous responses if that's relevant for your organization.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. This is great. Any other questions before I keep cruising along here? I don't see any hands.
Sorry,
go ahead, Julie.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Could be a very elementary question, but so does the system automatically, like once it understands our nonprofit, our size, our scope, our mission, does it then scour sort of like relative other comparative nonprofits in the area to like help inform, I guess, questions or approach?
It's not an elementary question at all, and it's something we are thinking about actively in developing the product. Right now, the way we support that is most of our users who have that market data can upload it here, and the system will become aware, but we don't do any sort of like competitive or market scan, at least today. We are in the lab, I always say. We're thinking about it and how that might come to life here. But as with anything with AI, we're very cautious to release things too quickly or until they've been tested accordingly. So for now, it's more of a manual import versus doing it automated.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great question. All right, I'm going to keep moving on just in the interest of time. But of course, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. So the next part of the process here is really all about building the strategic plan. So setting the mission, the vision, the values, and the strategic goals and objectives. So we've all probably done this in the traditional way where you have a Google Doc and you start to do this and you share it and people comment, et cetera. Our way really is a little bit more automated through our tool again, and I'll show you how this works, but it works with you to generate each of these parts of the plan in more of a chat functionality. And again, the system is aware of all the data that you've imported on the discovery, so it just makes it a little more comprehensive as you move through this. Again, this is how we activate it. You feed analysis into our system and then provide context, and then it'll work with you to draft those first takes of the goals. This is a really good example of a really small organization that used our plan to draft their first strategic plan. So this is an organization that's based in Kenya. Their budget is less than $30,000 a year, as you might imagine. So we support them in a very different way than our larger clients. But the leader obviously had a vision. She's also the founder. So taking that and allowing her to create a plan, get that out of her head and onto paper. She did it overnight on her cell phone. We typically don't support cell phone, at least today, but she figured out a way to do it, and she was able to make a first draft of her plan, doing that from the time we met her until her kickoff. Again, here you'll see her quote, "I'm the vision bearer. Now my team can go in and see my vision and make comments on it." So she was able to collaborate not only with her staff, but also share this with her board and donors. She has a small set of donors, as you might imagine. And the last piece I think is really special to us and really how we think about this, which is you're making it easier for the leader that doesn't have experience to go in and create the plan. So we're really all about putting our nonprofit leaders in the driver's seat of their own strategy and partnering with consultants or other organizations that can support them in actually building, refining, and executing the plan. So now I'll just drop back into the system and quickly show you what this looks like in practice. This is our strategic plan builder. So all of these are all the components we think about: the timeline, the history, the mission, the vision, the values, the goals and the objectives, which becomes the meat of the plan, and then ultimately the title and the executive summary of the whole plan. So the way that this works throughout the whole entire system is relatively the same. Essentially, it's a chat experience with our backend AI. Again, the AI has all the context from all of our data, as well as any of the data that you've imported. But we really like to keep the human in the cycle. So we don't say, based on all your data, here's a strategic plan. We really work alongside the users to develop it. So you dive in, and the way it works is the same across all of these. It really analyzes everything it knows, generates a statement. It'll always ask, do you have a place to start, or do you want to start from scratch? And you can work with it like you would a person. We have a lot of our customers that come in here and it'll say, like, do you know how to start to execute this? And they say, I don't know. And then it'll ask a series of questions to get you closer and closer to that. I won't take you all through a full kind of creation of a goal and an objective, because as you might imagine, this can take some time. But I will show you the output of what the end result is from this process. So this is an example of a draft strategic plan in our system. You see the title, the timeline, the summary of the whole plan, the history of this organization, the mission, the vision, the values, and then ultimately the goals and objectives that all live here, generated within the system. This is really the refinement part of the plan, or the review part. So what you can do in this part is start to invite people in to start to redline the draft strategic plan. So you can request feedback from your audience, whether that be board members, a consultant, etc. You're able to make partial plan share. So if you want to share maybe at the goal level with your staff, objective level with your board, or vice versa, you have complete control over that. And then ultimately what the users see is a version of the plan that looks like this. They can come in and highlight specific components and leave comments. They can leave general comments. And the nice part about this is the only person who sees all of the feedback is the administrator or the editor on the account, aka the executive director, whoever's in charge of the plan. So you don't have one Google Doc where people are arguing in the side or going back and forth on specific wording. It really allows you to get the feedback one by one and then process it all. So that's really what happens here. You're able to see this feedback and edit the plan in real time and save that down. Once again, like we mentioned earlier on, plans are meant to chart the course, but they're not meant to be set in stone. So anytime you update the plan in the system, it updates everywhere just to keep your strategic plan aligned across your whole organization. And that's really how we think about the strategic planning process. Which leads us into the next bit, which is all about, I covered review, so I skipped ahead here. Ultimately, the next step is to review and refine it. So this is something that you can do alongside your board or a consultant that you trust or another advisor that's within your network. Again, typically email chains or Google Docs. In this case, we do it all in the system so you can see it all in one place, and then use that feedback to really enhance your plan. I'll now jump to the next part, which is all about implementing. So this is really a part of our system that's been here since day one. It's taken a couple iterations and facelifts to make it a lot sleeker and prettier, but we've always believed that strategic plans are only good once they're actually implemented within the organization. So traditionally, you would be tracking this in a spreadsheet or a general kind of project management tool that you would have to customize for your organization. We've really all thought about it all in one place. So we also support this tracking implementation part. And then in real time, we're able to generate dashboards or progress of the plan as you're thinking about reporting to your board or donors or potential funders. And then last but not least is really making sure that you can activate, the implementation of the plan. So I will dive back over into the system just to show you the two ways we think about the tracking. The first part of it, apologies, let me go back here. The first part of it is our export tool. So we really want to make sure that the plan can get out of the system as you're thinking about recruiting new board members or donors or doing a capital campaign. So this is the export tool that we have. It allows you to select which components you actually want to export. You can add custom branding into the export. And then ultimately you can export it as a PDF, a PowerPoint, a Word doc, or a shareable web link. So this web link allows you to publish this on your website. You can go to our website and see our strategic plan because we use our own system. So this is really a nice way to make sure that as you are building the plan, you're able to activate it outside of just the system here. And then the other area is, or where the magic really ultimately happens, is in the strategic plan tracker here. So all those goals and objectives that we defined as part of the planning process land here. At the objective level, we ask our users to come in and start to think about a status, an owner, a priority, a start date, an end date, and then ultimately a metric that you can use to measure the success of the objective. There's also a space for comments as well. But ultimately, our goal here is to take the objective, make sure it's assigned to people, and then ultimately make sure we're thinking about the timeline and how to measure it. This operates like most project management tools you've ever used. If you've been in Asana or Monday.com or Trello, once you're tagged, this really follows you from a notifications perspective. So if you're tagged and something's not started and the due date is passed, it will send you an email reminder that says there's an action that you need to do. Or if someone updates something in the plan, it'll also send you like a note. It's a daily reminder that says, it's just more of an FYI versus something that needs your action. But this really helps to keep the plan living and making sure people are logging in and updating it. I update ours every week, and then we meet monthly as a team to review it, and then we'll review it with our board on a quarterly fashion. And that's really the cadence we talk to our nonprofits about. And then the start date, end date, and metrics were what we heard as the hardest part for a lot of our nonprofits. So we included the ability to add these using an AI tool. So essentially, you can come in, tell it, hey, I need help building these things, and it'll start to think through with you the start date, the end dates, and the metrics. You can think of this as like an 80 to 90% accuracy starting point. A lot of our nonprofits come in and tweak this or change metrics or update it. It's not meant to totally just give you the answers, but really a place to start as you're thinking about rolling this out at your organization. And then last but not least, below objectives live tactics. So you can think objectives, as these broader, smart pieces of the plan. And then the tactics are really those key steps you might take along the way. Again, the tactics have all the same functionality. You can assign an owner, you can put in a priority, a start date, an end date, and then ultimately, if there's a metric that's relevant for our larger organizations, they keep the metrics at both levels. Smaller tend to just stay at the objective level, but all of that is supported within the system. And then last, but certainly not least, are really plan level metrics. So we heard from a lot of customers, it's great to have metrics at each level of the objective, but the board is always asking me about fundraising and how many people we've served and, grants we've won, et cetera. So these plan level metrics allow you to elevate this data above the whole entire plan. And you can set a goal for the life cycle of the plan and then ultimately track progress throughout the history of the plan, which really gives you a nice overview of how the plan is progressing throughout time. I'll quickly jump back here. Essentially, the last piece is monitoring and adapting. So as we think about, what is the purpose of the plan is ultimately to be able to review it, learn from it, and continue to grow as an organization. So we support that in our system through kind of a couple tools, which I'll show you now. All that data from the tracker. So this is typically where most of our clients are doing work in the long run. They're in the tracker piece. All of that data is then reported out on our dashboard. So this gives you a view of the plan in a couple different ways. At the very top, it's just an overall progress pie chart of how things are moving across your whole plan. There's also a notes section. So if you want to kind of add the qualitative bit of the overall progress, you can do that here. All those plan level metrics that I mentioned, which again are sort of the highest level metrics, live at the top and allow you to see sort of an overall view of these. So if you are interested in how your fundraising has been progressing over the life cycle of the plan or at the areas where you've measured it, you're able to see this again, hopefully grow over time. Same with people served. It's really a dynamic way of looking at the data. And then last but not least is really getting into the weeds or more of the specifics. So below lives all of the goals. as well as the overall objective progress for each of them. And then if you're in a board meeting or in a staff meeting and there's something behind and you want to kind of dig in, you're able to open this up and get a more detailed view of this goal. So this will highlight the objectives within the goal. You can identify which one is behind. You can look at the progress of that metric and see where you are exactly. And then last but not least, you're able to see sort of how this might impact the timeline. This is a timeline view of all of these objectives throughout the time of the plan, and you can see where you are today. And it really helps you to understand what this delay might do to the rest of your plan and really how to unblock your organization. The last thing I'll mention is this is also shareable. So you can create a shareable link of this dashboard so that you're able to share this with your board members. They don't have access to the rest of the system, so they won't be in your tactics or the specifics, but they'll at least see the overall view and they won't have to log in or anything. It's really meant to create a frictionless experience between your tracking of the plan and ultimately how you're reporting on it. I'll pause there. That's sort of the life cycle of the strategy side of things. Any questions about the strategic planning functionality specifically? Liz, do you have one? Sorry.
I do. I'm sorry. I'm going to have a bunch of questions. So I don't know if you want me to continue to ask them here, or if you want to set up a time for us to chat offline, or
we can do yes and. Why don't you ask them? Because I'm sure you're not the only one in the virtual room. And then if we need more time, happy to set it up.
Perfect. On the tracker, in the tracker function.
Yep.
Are you able to simply upload your board minutes, for example, and have that information get flowed into the tracker, or do you have to manually add any updates?
Yeah, we don't, you have to manually update this right now. We don't think about it as like, reporting on the board and then taking those minutes to update the plan. It's kind of vice versa. But yeah, for now, all of this is manual inputs.
Awesome.
Yeah, of course.
And these questions are really helpful too, because we're a newish company. So your insights into what could be useful also can help us improve over time.
And I mean, I've looked at a couple different systems, and the one of that's kind of what they did. They would like pull in work plans and minutes and things like that and sort it into the tracker. So I thought that was interesting. The other question I have is on the dashboard, when it's tracking progress, is there a place where you can put in kind of notes as to why the progress has been halted? For example, federal government pulled funding and therefore this is now frozen, versus just seeing, oh, this is frozen without any explanation.
Yeah, so we have notes, various parts. At the very top, you can always add any data that's relevant here in this like general notes area. And then if there's something relevant to each goal, again, you can add all of that here. So all of those notes are captured here. And the nice thing is that the advisor knows about all of this. So if you did something like came in, updated your dashboard, and then went to advisor and said, please write me a brief email to give my board an update on the progress of the plan, it would essentially pull all of it and provide that for you. So that's another way you're able to kind of use the system.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Of course.
That's it. I'm done.
Oh, perfect. No worries. Yeah, and Liz, the other question you asked about the minutes really helping to inform the plan. Again, we have a lot of our customers who end up uploading minutes or board retreat information, et cetera, here to help inform the creation of the plans. That's another way to think about it. Any other questions on the line?
Adam, is there any way to integrate other systems with PlanPerfect, such as like Virtuous doing a perfect, Razor's Edge, whatever, and have it automatically pull in the fundraising data?
Right now, there is sadly not. The way that we support this today is through like custom integrations through Zapier. So all those big names you just mentioned are already out of the box supported there. It's not ideal. It's really thinking about updating the metrics using that data. But we are actively thinking about how to integrate this into the ecosystem. As anybody on the call knows, there's about 400 CRMs that you could possibly use as a nonprofit. So trying to find the ones that make the most sense and or creating a way for that data to get in regardless of your CRM. But it's a great question, Julie.
Adam, kind of a related question.
Yeah.
Can you use APIs to automate certain things using tools like Zapier or Make?
Yeah, so that's how we kind of do our quote unquote integrations today is through Zapier. We don't have a ton out of the box, Gene, right now, but we're working to kind of define those and build them. We have the plugin ready. It's just really like, what are you trying to accomplish in our system and where is the data elsewhere? And then we would set up custom zaps. So it's not as easy as like, clicking a button here, here, and here. It's a little more collaborative, but yeah, that's exactly how we're thinking about it today, especially as folks are operating in so many other systems.
Cool, thanks.
And
Yeah, of
Julie, do you
course.
have a client who's working, or are you in your role working with Razor's Edge by any chance? No. I ask if anybody is using Razor's Edge really because we're trying to think about how if we do decide to integrate with any of the CRMs, like what that would actually look like. So I'd love to get any feedback on that.
Yeah, I think sometimes the Razor's Edge, it's obviously a very robust platform. It tends to be used by, larger organizations. I think some of the smaller ones, I think you heard before, PlanPerfect seems to be a popular one. There are some other smaller, less expensive platforms that we've come across that our nonprofits are using from a CRM perspective. But yeah, I mean, that's a tough decision. I had a quick question about ownership of this, just out of curiosity, what you see from your current clients. Is there a best practice that you recommend? Have one person in charge? I mean, some people go with the one person approach, Toby, you're in charge of this. Good luck, figure it out. Or you have a committee approach where, a select few will be in charge of getting this plan to the finish line. What are some of your best practices with the organization that you work with when it comes to using this tool?
Yeah, I would say a best practice is to have one person in the driver's seat whose goal it is to get this from vision to actually having a plan. But we typically see that committees or boards come into it at multiple points. So one example is you do the discovery and then you review the SWOT analysis at the committee level to start to identify which goals you want to pull into the plan. Obviously, once you have a draft plan, the committee will review it and help you to finalize it before you take it to the board. So from like a strictly best practice, again, if everybody is sharing responsibility, nobody is really always willing to pick up the baton. So if you kind of have one person on the hook to do it, that's typically what we see as best practice. But we don't limit users in our system. So you can add as many folks as you want in here, whether that be in building the plan or ultimately in executing it. We really see the value in making sure that the system is used and up to date versus trying to nickel and dime for each seat that exists within the system. Go ahead, Walt. Oh, you might be.
Sorry about that.
No
Yes.
worries.
I was just wondering about training on the system. I mean, there's obviously a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah.
What considerations are given for training?
Yeah, so right now I'll just talk about our customer success model. Just given that we're new, we do a lot of the training through that. So our customer success looks like three buckets. The first one is we have weekly office hours. So those oscillate between the morning and afternoon on Mondays. So folks can drop in there and get any help that they need as they're moving along through their process. You're also able to book an unlimited number of one-on-ones with the customer success team, which is yours truly today. So that's another way that we support more in real time. And then last but not least, we have what we call strategy check-ins. So for the first quarter of a nonprofit's time with us, we check in with them monthly. And the goal of that, Walt, is exactly what you're describing. It's figuring out where they are and helping them to move through the process in the system, and then making sure we're keeping a pulse on it. After that first quarter, it typically drops to quarterly, and that's due in part to the fact that they're self-sufficient and working on their own, and they don't need us to be explaining, click this button here or this drop down here. But we work to support them in office hours or via the one-on-ones, and we are scary fast to respond via email. So we also support people via email as well.
Good. Thank you, Al.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. And we're thinking about like training and creating training videos, et cetera. But the system is moving so quickly that by the time we get that done, there's a new version of it. And so we're trying to stay ahead of it as much as possible.
Okay.
I just want to be respectful of time. I know we only have 7 minutes left, so I'm just going to quickly drop in and show the risk management builder. This is the newest part of our system. Essentially, this is very similar to creating your strategic plan, but in this scenario, you're creating a risk plan. Essentially, what it is it's a chat experience with the AI here. You'll see we've completed this one. It really works with you iteratively, so it'll kind of get a general understanding of your organization and kind of the key risks that it might face, and then it'll produce those on the right side. You add them into your plan. You can always dig deeper and deeper and deeper with the bot. We've just found that, for a variety of organizations, sometimes going too deep is a little overwhelming at first. So this allows you to kind of get those key risk areas lined up at the outset. And then within each risk area, you can work alongside, again, the AI to start to identify those actual risks. So in this scenario, this nonprofit is called Tech Connect. It's a fake nonprofit that works with the elderly to help them become more tech literate. So essentially, in this case, the biggest concern for us is cybersecurity with our constituent groups. So this will talk about, phishing attacks. Again, you brainstorm these alongside the AI tool. Then you can assign an impact, a likelihood, an owner. Think about the consequences. So what happens if this risk comes true? What are we exposed to? And then ultimately the control items. So what are we doing here to help control this risk or at least acknowledge it within our organization? Right now, it's just the builder. We're also working on an export tool and a reporting tool for this as well, just given the importance of this at the board and governance level, but really working alongside our earliest clients to develop this or build this part of the system as well. And then the last part was advisor, but we already showed that. That's really our gap filler in the system today. If you're trying to do something that the system doesn't support out of the box, we really work alongside the advisor to do that. In fact, a client yesterday asked, like, hey, can you review our plan? Which I did. And then I went in and asked the advisor, like, can you review the plan? Because I was just curious what it came up with. So shared all of that feedback with them. But yeah, that's really the bulk of it and everything that is available in our system today.
Hey, Adam, I apologize if I missed this when you started talking about it, but
No
the
worries.
risk management builder, is that something that you build, you do that before you start the process and it kind of customizes the approach?
Everything in the system is aware of anything else you've done. So some of our clients build the plan and then build the risk plan. You can also build the risk plan and then build the strategic plan. It's allows the user to sort of select their own journey. As you might imagine, both live at the organization level, both your risk and your strategic plan. So it really depends on the
So
leader.
this is a separate tool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can think of this as, and we're updating the system where we got this out and then we were like, okay, the nav probably needs to be readjusted. But yes, you can think of this as like another version of building a plan in the system. But in this case, it's your enterprise risk management plan versus your strategic plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I know we only have 3 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody's faces. Any other questions that we can field? And we're always available. I know Toby will share the recording and our contact information if you want to kind of get deeper into the system or have another conversation. We're always available and love talking with everyone. So feel free to just find time on our calendar. Oh.